This video may be a little unconventional today. It's not exactly your typical repot. All of this and more coming up at the Orchid Hut. Welcome back. My name is Dana. And today's video is going to be about this hybrid Cattleya orchid, and we're going to be trying something really different with it. I'll show you why in just a second. And right now at the beginning of this video, I have absolutely no idea if this is even going to work, but I'm going to give it a try. And as always, I have a backup plan in case it doesn't work. You'll have to wait and watch all the way to the end to see what actually happens. But before we get started with the details of this orchid, I did want to give you a little bit of an update on the Southeast Texas weather. We do have a little bit of a tropical system developing in the Gulf, but it is looking like we are not going to get a drop of rain from it in my area. We would so appreciate a little bit of a shower from a tropical disturbance, but oh no, it looks like the entire system will be south of us. And so still, I think now we're like on day 75, 76, day 80 of no rain. Every single day on my phone I get an emergency message about how fires can spread really quickly if they start, and so none of that is good. We would love to have a little bit of rain. Doesn't look like we're going to get a drop. One of the other things that's happening with the native pecan trees, and you probably noticed this on camera and wonder what in the world, but even the native pecan trees are beginning to drop their fruit, so to speak, because of the drought. Now, if a native tree can't make it, something is really not right with the weather circumstances. So typically, these native pecans wait until this outer shell is completely dry. And when it is dry, the shell pulls away from the nut. And then eventually, like in October, the dried nuts fall from the tree, and this part that's green here, has pulled away and just kind of breaks away almost like dry bark. But because of the drought and not having any rain, the tree is dropping these pecans because it cannot support them. So that's something really sad that's happening because of the drought. Now, I had to wait a little bit this morning. I was going to film this earlier, but the eastern sun was coming through the bay window in such a way that it was making a glare across the countertop here. So hopefully that is over with. But now, right outside the bay window in my neighbor's yard, it looks like there are some workmen, and every once in a while they drop a tool on the cement and it kind of makes a clanking noise. So if you hear that, they're working on my neighbor's gate. Because of the drought, it's like sagging in one direction, so the latch no longer works. And so they're out there, I think, trying to rebalance the gate so that the latch works, so that the dogs don't get out. So again, another, circumstance from the drought. The soil is shifting and things are getting out of balance. Our wooden gate is still closing just fine. That's usually the typical place that we notice when things start to shift. It's still working, but we do have a sprinkler system keeping at least the top of the soil wet enough, I guess, to not cause that to happen. But our sprinkler system for the lawn is not keeping up. I'm having to put, the extra sprinklers out, and we're having to run a soaker hose along the foundation because it's getting too dry and the soil is pulling away from the cement, and that's not good for your foundation. So we're just struggling with all kinds of things. Would love to have some rain without it being a flood, because then that's the next thing that happens in this area. When it does eventually rain, it will be too much, and then we will swing the other direction and we'll have floods. Okay, let's get on with the orchid. Enough about the weather that we can't really do anything about. Okay, so you have seen this orchid before. It was a first-time bloomer for me this year. It's Potinara Naomi's Delight crossed with Catherine Clarkson, which was an SVO award-winning orchid. So it is very much a complex hybrid. I've had it for, a couple of years now, maybe in my collection. When I received it, it had these seedling pseudobulbs right here, the first 4. It came shipped to me with this one cut away. There must have been something not right about it. And then I believe it had at least maybe this one more bulb that had grown. And since it's been in my care, I do believe it has grown these last 4 pseudobulbs here. Now this orchid can't quite decide whether it wants to be unifoliate, 1 leaf, or bifoliate, 2 leaves. Now you might expect that the seedling pseudobulbs would just have 1 leaf and maybe it wouldn't grow 2 leaves until it got to be more mature, but you can see where it bloomed from this year was just a single leafed, a unifoliate pseudobulb, and we will be cutting this away today as part of the cleanup. And then beyond that, it had, some growths that had 2 leaves, and the newest growth right here will also be having 2 leaves. Now, I'm wondering if the ones that bloom are actually unifoliate, but I don't have enough of a pattern for this orchid established yet to have that quite figured out. But what I do know for sure is that this has, the horizontal rhizome, which would be, as expected for an orchid like this. And the newest growth is right here against the edge of the pot. The previous growth was also pretty close to the edge of the pot, right down here. And if this grows a pseudobulb over the course of the fall and winter, it's going to be over the pot. The roots will have no place to go. And there is a slight upward sort of growth pattern here where it's getting a little bit higher and higher. Now, I repotted this orchid only a year ago. So the media that's in here is not particularly off. There's nothing wrong with the media. This orchid could easily stay in this pot another year, maybe 2, before the media would need to be replaced. So I think it's fresh, and I feel kind of bad wasting perfectly good media. And as well, the orchid is happy in this. It has new root growth, some of which is coming out of the pot. That will be a bit problematic for what we're going to try to do today. But otherwise, the roots are looking pretty good. What I would love to do as part of a, you might want to call it a partial repot. You might want to just call it a repositioning. But what I'm going to attempt to do is loosen this just enough from the top of the pot to maybe remove this one seedling pseudobulb, shift it the tiniest bit in this direction, if I can, and allow this to just have a bit more room for maybe another year's worth of growth without disturbing the entire orchid in the pot. I have no idea if this is even going to be possible. And the first problem is going to be, that the orchid is not going to cooperate because there are roots growing out the slits in the bottom of the pot. All right, so this was watered yesterday. I'm hoping there are not, a bunch of ants in here. I don't really see evidence of that right at the moment, so I'm hoping that's not going to be the case. My plan here is to remove about the top half of the media. I'm going to then try to either cut the pot just a little bit or loosen this somehow so as not to destroy these roots if I can avoid that situation. And then just reposition this and snip off this little tip end of the rhizome here, which should not do any harm at all. Okay, so let's get started and see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and just dump out the top part of the media. and see what happens. Now, if, you know, something wants to stick, I'm going to just let it. And it may turn out that this is actually more work than just a full repot. Because, you know, if I were doing a full repot, we would just pull the whole thing out, get rid of all the old media, and start fresh. But I just have this feeling that that kind of disturbance is not fully necessary here. My instincts could be completely wrong. We will find out in a bit. So I can already tell that cutting off, let's see if the camera can pick that up, that cutting off the tip of that rhizome right there is not going to be a problem at all. And most of the good root system is on this side of the pot. The top of the media is falling away just fine. A lot of the newer root system is right up against the edge of the pot where that latest growth is. And this one has been happily growing outside on the bench area up against the fence. So in a video I think that I posted last week, that is my highest light growing space outdoors. Okay, now, so far so good. Let's see what I can do about this situation now at the bottom, because I might need these roots to be a little bit willing to be flexible here. These I believe are dead, so I'm just going to cut that away so it doesn't prohibit me from trying to move the orchid in the pot. These I think are going to cooperate without me having to cut them off, but if I do end up having to cut them off, that will be fine. All right, now the next thing that we're going to do is I can see the top of the rhizome right here. I'm going to cut that away just to cut that one off, and you will notice that it pulls out very easily because there is no root system left here. All of these roots on this particular part of the plant are no longer living, so that is an okay thing. I see a few more dead roots sticking up, so I'm just going to cut the ones away that I can see. Not a big deal. And the idea here is to shift this closer and possibly a little bit further down in the pot. Nothing ventured, nothing gained is the motto for this. Okay, all of these roots extremely flexible because this was watered just yesterday. And guess what? That is about all that we are going to need to do. Now, I am going to stake this one though, because I have a feeling that it will want to sort of push up in the pot as the roots kind of readjust themselves. And so I'm going to press down a little bit here to resituate it in that slightly lower position. And I'm going to take just the tiniest bit of a break. I'm going to find a stake that's going to work for this purpose, and we will finish cleaning up this orchid, and it is going to feel brand new. Okay, I'm going to be right back. Okay, so if I do say so myself, this was a successful repositioning of an orchid in media that was not old, just to buy a little more time in the current setup that it was in without really disturbing the root system. Now, will this work in all cases? Probably not. You'll have to kind of use your best instincts and give it a try. Of course, the backup plan is to just, be prepared to have to unpot the entire orchid and start over. So now that we are looking at this orchid, what I did off camera is I kind of cleaned up the old media that was previously in the pot, and it's on this paper towel. I do have a little bit more media to add to the top of the pot if necessary, and I have a very small stake, and I have a butterfly clip, and I think I'll go ahead and figure out where to put the stake first. My thought, is that this orchid is going to want to kind of push up, as it continues to grow. So I want to try to, I guess, maybe encourage it not to do that. So we're gonna stake, I believe, this bulb right here. And hopefully this butterfly clip will encourage it to stay down in the bottom of the pot. And just a little kind of a tip here for these butterfly clips, if you happen to use them as well. Sometimes the hinge right here can damage the plant, so you want to put the hinge on the side of the stake and then let the little part that wraps around grasp the cane, and then there's less chance that you'll damage that cane from the hinge that's on the clip. So alright, so that should kind of help hold it down a bit. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and add the media that was previously in the pot. So this is not anything new. We're just adding this back to the top. We may continue to press down just a little bit. The orchid does want to feel secure, so pressing down a little bit on the edges is fine, but you don't want to press down so much that you completely compact the media. And I really don't think that I'm going to need to add any of the extra media that I got in the cup. I think this will be fine. Oops. There we go. Okay, so there is room to add just a little bit more here at the top, so I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll show you why in just a second. I'll get it on the camera maybe a little bit closer. But our new growth now is much closer to the top of the pot, and that's a good thing because that's where the roots are going to need to go once they develop. This orchid tends to develop roots after the new cane is more mature. So the newest growth here has not started root development, so that's a good thing. All right, so let's have a look here. We have more space now. So this is the newest growth right here. it's much closer to the top of the media for when it puts down roots, and there probably is room for at least one more cane to grow, and then by that time this orchid will need fresh media anyway. All right, so thank you so much for watching this experimental project with the repositioning of an orchid in the same pot that it's been in. And if you like this video or learned something new, please give it a thumbs up. The subscribe button will be coming up in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and that notifications bell will let you know when I've posted something new. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you're in Texas, please keep cool. Talk to you next time.